Good morning, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. This is 6 News. Today, border wars. Premiers clash over when to allow interstate travel. Some saying next week, others saying next month. Also, concerns in New South Wales about coronavirus spreading on public transport. Reporter Jack Hahn has the details. First on 6 News, anger after writer Clementine Ford says coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough. Investigations continue in Pakistan after 97 people were killed in a plane crash. Police fire tear gas at protesters in Hong Kong as China implements media blackouts, and incredible new drone pictures of last week's tornado that ripped through Victoria. It's just past 10 a.m. The 6 Morning News starts now. Thanks for joining us on another busy Thursday. We begin with the border wars being fought across the country. Premiers from all over Australia clashing over when to allow interstate travel and potential travel bubbles in different states. It seems some politicians openly criticising premiers over decisions made about travel. And for more on this, I'm joined live in Perth by former mining industry executive Jim Sharp. Jim, thanks for your time this morning. Are WA's borders set to be reopened anytime soon?
Yeah, well, it seems to be more controversial, that one, outside Western Australia than inside. You know, we've had people like Gladys Berejiklian saying it's having a bit of a spat with our Premier, Mark McGowan, about opening up the borders, and we've got Clive Palmer as well trying to get into WA. In fact, one of the headlines in yesterday's Western Australian is Premier wants WA to be a Clive-free zone, with a photograph of Clive Palmer there. So it's brought out a little bit of that sort of. Western Australians are pretty good at taking on the rest of Australia. So when you've got people like Clive Palmer and even Jeff Kennett having his two bobs worth, or another Premier like Gladys Berejiklian, you know, the state that, as Mark McGowan unkindly said, let the Ruby Princess passengers in, Western Australians don't seem to take too kindly to that. So as things sit at the moment, I mentioned before, we've got these 4 phases. Opening up the borders is the final phase, phase 4. And so it looks very unlikely that that will happen until, you know, we've got the school holidays coming up in July. It seems unlikely that the borders here will be open before then. It seems more likely that it will be after then, maybe September. And the emphasis is on the internal borders within those regions that I was mentioning, internally within WA. It's more likely that they'll be opened up well before the state borders will be opened up. So no time soon, unless there's a big change in what Mark McGowan, the Premier, is saying.
Jim, thanks for your time. Well, as more people in New South Wales head back to school and work, there's major concern about the state's public transport system. It's feared that someone with COVID-19 could unintentionally spread the virus on buses, trains and ferries. Reporter Jack Hahn has the latest details.
Good morning to you, Leo. It's wild, it's windy here in Sydney, but many people are returning to normal this week on the public transport system as work continues to be rolled back in a phased approach. Many people need to get back to their jobs in the city, and I'm right now on a line that would usually be packed at this time of the hour. It is a key line into the city of Sydney, but as you can see behind me, there is not too many people on the platform at all, and this is because the New South Wales Transport Minister has been pleading with people not to take public transport and instead to drive their own cars. But people are going to call it Carmageddon because we have seen some traffic in Sydney that would be unthinkable on an already stretched road. Some trips that would take an hour are taking up to 3 hours instead. And this all is because many people are quite worried that if they catch public transport, they won't be allowed on, because something that we have continued to see here, and I'll show you on this seat, is there are limits on the amount of people allowed on trains and public transport. There's this sign here that's warning people not to sit on that seat, and there are limits. Only 32 people allowed on one carriage in a train. Usually that's around 100 people that could fit into a carriage, and then also just 12 people allowed on one bus at one time. So if you get to the 12 limit, the bus will continue to drive on, and people are worried that There's two evils at the moment. Do you take your car, which might take up to 3 hours, or do you catch a train knowing that you might not be allowed on for some time? It's a real dilemma at the moment as the city continues to fight the coronavirus, and this is just one of the many new normals people will have to get used to.
Jack Hahn there. Well, there's anger growing towards Clementine Ford after the writer published a controversial tweet in which she wrote, "Honestly, the coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough." Following that, or just before that rather, she received a ratepayer-funded literacy grant from the Melbourne City Council. Darren Hinch was one of those calling for the decision to be rescinded. Some of the other opinions coming into our Twitter page right now include this one from Richard. He says, "I tend to cut people some slack. I followed Clementine for years and believe that she mostly fights the good fight. It's when she crosses the line in such awful ways that needs to be called out. It doesn't matter who you are, when you're out of line, you have to own it." Countess says, "If a man said the same thing about women, the howls of outrage would be louder. She never mentions violence against men by women. She's just hate all men regardless." And Hey Yep You says, "Rescinded it should be. Remember to have your say on our social pages at 6 News AU." Investigations continue in Pakistan after 97 people died when a passenger plane crashed into a neighbourhood. The crew attempted to make an emergency landing minutes before the plane came down and ended up only 2 miles away from the runway. The pilot's mayday call made seconds before impact.
Mayday, Pakistan 8303.
Only 2 people survived the crash, one of them describing horrifying scenes inside the plane. It's believed an engine fire caused the accident. Investigations are ongoing. To Hong Kong now, and police have fired tear gas at protesters following more tensions about China's national security law. Around 200 people were arrested on Sunday for illegal assembly and misconduct in public places. China is also issuing media blackouts against the BBC and other mainstream outlets, something not uncommon on the mainland. Every time those outlets mention the legislation, as you can see in this clip from the BBC's China correspondent, Stephen McDonnell. Incredible new drone footage of the tornado that ripped through Victoria last week has been revealed. At least 50 homes were significantly damaged and around 100 roofs needed repairing. One person was injured during the storm but will be okay. The fixture for round 2 of the AFL season has been released, with the first game of the restarted season set to be the Collingwood Magpies versus the Richmond Tigers, played in front of an empty MCG. We wanted to know your thoughts, so we ran a footy poll. And our Twitter poll revealed that 60% of you believe the Pies will come out on top, 40% backing the Tigers. Some of the comments we got on Instagram include from ASR is the best. He says Richmond will obviously win. Ella says obviously Richmond. From Sporty Nelson, he says my boys Richmond. Luca says Collingwood. And over on Facebook, Ben says Hawthorn. Actually, Ben, there will be a survey about Hawthorn v Geelong. That'll be on social media soon. Checking the weather now. Clouds in Darwin, 32 tomorrow. Brisbane, cloudy for the next few days, 24 tomorrow. Heavy rain in Sydney, getting up to just 17. Sunny on Saturday, however. Chilly weather in Canberra, 15 tomorrow and 16 on Saturday. Melbourne, sunny tomorrow, 17. In Hobart, cloudy for the next few days, 17 tomorrow. 18 and sunny in Adelaide, heavy rain on Saturday. And after some wild storms, more rain in Perth tomorrow with a little bit of sunshine on the weekend. And staying with the weather for a brief moment, Melburnians were woken with a blanket of fog over the city. These exclusive images are just some of what was seen on Tuesday morning. It's Tuesday. There is set to be more fog in the next few days as well. So get your cameras out. You can take a few good pictures for Instagram there. And on that note, that is the 6 morning news for this Thursday. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at 6 News AU. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Bye for now.